As the year comes towards a close, we've got 4 new shows to talk about. MacGruber over on Peacock, Station 11 on HBO Max, Dogs in Space on Netflix, and Firebite on AMC+. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It, and welcome to TV news and reviews for the week. And the year is winding down, so not a ton coming out here to talk about. And in fact, we're not even going to really do the news because it's Christmas week before Christmas and New Year's. There, studios are closed. There's no real news coming out. So we'll go back to that portion next week. So this is going to be a pretty quick show, I think, with only 4 new ones to talk about. But like I said up top, it's going to be MacGruber, Station 11, Dogs in Space, and Firebite over on AMC+. But before we get into those shows, I do want to welcome you to Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. If you are a fan of TV like myself, check out my TV news and reviews videos. Every single week, we cover all the new shows coming out and give you, the week's news as well, cancellations, renewals, casting choices, all of that sort of stuff. And, in usually longer form, usually 40 minutes or so. But like I said, it's the end of the year. All the studios are closed. You know the deal. So let's get ready to do it with MacGruber. This is over on Peacock TV, and this is stemming from, if you don't know, a MacGruber film from about a decade ago, and then before that it was a short form sketch on Saturday Night Live. And by short form, I mean most of them lasted about 90 seconds, but then they would repeat them or repeat that theme like 2 or 3 other times in each episode. And it is based on MacGyver. It's a parody of that old show from the 80s, and Will Forte stars here as the titular character, but a lot of people from the film have crossed over to the show as well, including Kristen Wiig and Ryan Phillippe, and then we have a lot of interesting newcomers as well, Lawrence Fishburne, Sam Elliott, Billy Zane, and this is co-created by one of the guys from The Lonely Island, Jorma Taccone, who, love The Lonely Island. Good stuff with them. And essentially, this takes place in real time from the movie. So MacGruber has been in prison for a decade. And by the way, you don't need to see the movie to watch the show. So he is finally released from prison for things that happen at the end of the movie, which they tell you in detail here, so you really don't need it. But a mysterious villain from his past surfaces, and he has to track him down. So he gets the band back together and tries to do that. So there's 8 episodes of this show, and like Peacock usually does, they are all available for you right now. Look, I'm not a huge MacGruber fan. I did not really care for the movie. In fact, I really hated the movie. I might have even failed it. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, SNL's doing one of their, stupid sketches and stretching it out into 2 hours or, whatever, 90 minutes. And I didn't really think it had much to say. Looking back, it's sort of become a little bit of a cult classic now. People, it tagged at the box office. It completely, went unnoticed, and critically did not get a lot of love either. But, over time, like a lot of comedies do specifically, it's gotten this little bit of a cult following. I wouldn't say huge, but I guess good enough that they decided to make a TV show about it. And it's interesting because I really like Will Forte's stuff. I loved Last Man on Earth on Fox. Great show. But this one, I just thought, all right, we get it. It's sort of a one-note joke. They did it in the sketch, and it was funny enough in the sketch. Basically, the sketch premise was him and Kristen Wiig's character would be stuck in a factory or stuck in a closet or warehouse or whatever. They had to try and get out, or this bomb's going to explode, or they have to try and defuse the bomb, or it's going to explode. And, he keeps asking for random items like MacGyver used to do, make a bomb with a, stick of bubble gum and a hairpin, that kind of thing. And so, the idea of taking that off is funny. And then, it would always blow up and they would all die at the end of the sketch. So they would recur that, 3 times the episode and he would die every time. So, okay, fine. It's a funny bit, I guess. But then bringing it to a full length movie, it was a lot of just, long form jokes that I didn't think really landed and callbacks from an hour ago that we all forgot about. It just didn't work for me. The series fares a little bit better, but still not much. One thing I do like about Will Forte, and maybe it is a newfound respect I have for him since Last Man on Earth, but he is willing to do really anything for a laugh. And in that vein, he is fully naked for a good 20 minutes of the first episode. And we never see his junk, but we see his butt a lot. And he just kind of goes for broke with that, and that can be humorous just in itself. I think the jokes here are a little bit better formed, and I don't know, maybe I disliked the movie so much that I was like, okay, this is going to be horrible, and then it was merely all right. I still don't think I would recommend this. There's a lot more satirical stuff out there. I think that's a little funnier, and really, all the sketches are on YouTube probably. I watch a lot of SNL sketches on YouTube. So I think this might be funnier in that 90-second realm than it is, 35 minutes. I do like satirical shows though. So it's not that specifically. So I was trying to think like, okay, why, is this one? And I don't think the character is just very one note. And I like some of the writing. I think here we're getting a little bit more time to experience the Kristen Wiig and Ryan Phillippe characters a little bit more. I watched, I think at least 2 episodes, maybe 3, of this show. So yes, we get a little more time with the characters. Billy Zane, always great as a villain. We know this from Titanic. I think he's fun here. Val Kilmer was the villain in the movie. I thought, I don't know, it was a little bit over the top maybe, which I know satire is supposed to be and parody is supposed to be, but there is something also to be said for a little more subtlety. And actually, as not a fan of Billy Zane as I am, he actually, I think, is maybe a better villain here than Val Kilmer was in the movie. So look, I got a couple of laughs from this. It's not something I think I'm going to finish, but it is, I think, an upswing from the movie. I'm going to leave MacGruber with a C. Next, let's go to Station 11. This is on HBO Max. It is based on a book from 2014, which is interesting because it's, the timing is perfect. I'm sure they did this on purpose. But then I read this was commissioned in June of 2019. So the reason I say that the timing is sort of interesting is because it is about a flu pandemic that results in the complete collapse of civilization. And so, yes, obviously I thought immediately of, oh my God, this is, they're ripping this right from the COVID-19 headlines. And then I find out, oh, it's based on a book. I thought, oh, okay, well, they must have, commissioned it in the summer of last year and then filmed it in the fall, whatever. No, they commissioned it in 2019, for regular HBO at the time. So, just interesting timing, I guess. And in fact, it's possible they put it off, premiering it till now, until people were a little bit more desensitized to this kind of stuff. I think if they released something like this last fall or last winter, I think it would have been actually too soon. But now we're, almost 2 full years into COVID-19. And so, all right, we can kind of distance ourselves a little bit, even though COVID is still rampant. But interesting subject matter, I think. And so the main parts of this miniseries are going to take place 20 years after this flu pandemic swept the world. But that first episode is mostly sort of present day before we flash forward to the 20 years. So we see people discovering, the flu and discovering people being sick and all of this. And so Mackenzie Davis is Kristen here. She's a young girl in the present day, but then when we flash forward 20 years, she is played by Mackenzie Davis. And then Himish Patel plays Jivan Chaudhry. And I know him from that great movie Yesterday, that Beatles movie. But he's the star of this alongside with Mackenzie Davis. And basically, he is in the audience at this play. Somebody on stage gets sick and ends up dying from this disease. And so he leaps to his feet, whatever. But he finds this young girl who is one of the actresses. She's like 6 or 7 and doesn't, she has like a caretaker that seemingly doesn't really care where she is. So he tries to get her back to her home and realizes once he gets there, oh, mom and dad don't really exist. She really is sort of alone, in the world. So takes her under his wing, and then he finds more and more out about this pandemic and ends up basically saving her life and taking her into shelter. So by the end of the first episode, it's a little spoiler, but I mean, this is the premise of the show. By the end of the first episode, we flash forward within that 20 years and realize that, okay, they both have made it. But, what is the world like? What are they like? And who else is around? So I got, 2 episodes through on this. This is, HBO Max sort of does their shows weekly, so not all the episodes are up. This is going to go through the middle of January with 10 episodes total, but there's I guess 4 of them up now because they started doing them in 3 the first week and then 2 the second week. So there's several episodes up now already. But I liked this show. I worried that maybe it would be a little too soon, or this hits a little too close to home. And look, the truth is, folks, we're still not out of the woods on COVID. So I know people like to think we are, but so I think this is very, very present, this show, even though it's from a book from 7 years ago. But I think it hits on a lot of ideas and fears that we had going into the pandemic, a year and a half ago, and that a lot of people have just sort of shrugged their shoulders at now, but is still very much with us. So I do think it's an interesting display of that. We've seen, actually, I've reviewed a few shows like this over the 2 years I've been doing the TV news and reviews. A few in the, this is apocalyptic because of a virus, and, right in the COVID-19 era, and a lot of them have been filmed, before that, but there was one, I can't think of what it was, on Hulu, that I thought was pretty good. It's canceled already. It's only 1 season, but they were at a convention or something, and then like a Comic-Con, and then the flu swept. I thought actually that was a little too current, a little too close to home, because I think it was released in the summer of 2020 or something, and it was an interesting show, but I just thought, oh man, this is too present for us right now, cannot handle. But this, I think, it also gives a more interesting look, because only that first episode takes place with the pandemic happening, and then the rest of the show is 20 years in the future. Now, I guess there's, a couple of flashbacks, in the second episode, but for the most part, it's going to be in the future. So, in that sense, it almost gives me a little hope, okay, well, I guess maybe not everybody dies, and, whatever. So, the acting, I think, here is pretty decent. Nothing maybe to write home about, but I think the actors do sort of get their characters, and the little girl, and what's her name? Because I said, it was Mackenzie Davis is the adult version, but Matilda Lawler plays the young version, and I think she's really good too. We sort of do sense her fear, but also her sort of obliviousness as to what is going on, and everything she's sort of not being told, and that kind of thing. As a miniseries, I think that's a good idea. We don't need to extend these things, but it's HBO Max, so if it does extremely well, they'll just make it a series anyway, like The Flight Attendant. That was supposed to be a miniseries, and then, oops, it was so popular. But I think this might need to stay sort of in that wheelhouse of miniseries, because I don't know that we need 10 seasons of this, but I thought it was pretty decent. I'm going to give Station 11A B. Up next, we've got Dogs in Space on Netflix. This is a cartoon set in the not-so-distant future. Earth's scientists have sent a fleet of genetically modified dogs to explore the galaxy in search of a new planet. And we've got some familiar names in this. Haley Joel Osment plays the lead dog named Garbage, which I just think is hilarious. Sarah Chalk from Scrubs and the old Roseanne days plays Stella. Chris Parnell, formerly of SNL, plays Ed. Deborah Wilson, formerly of Mad TV, plays the Duchess. So we've got a handful of familiar faces here, or familiar names at least. And this is literally in that pantheon of sort of recent Netflix kid shows that are more for like the Cartoon Network set than they are for like little kids. I think, not that there's, a lot of cursing, but this is really harkening back to more like the jokes you would find in like a Powerpuff Girls or Dexter's Laboratory or Ed, Ed and Eddie. It's sort of, and I don't know, in my mind, I feel like, okay, the writers of this show, and even really the animators, even the look of the show has sort of a feel with this. We're at the era now where people that are in the industry making things, creating things for us, grew up on those late 90s and early 2000s Cartoon Network shows. This has that feel. And even maybe in more of the present day shows like maybe an Adventure Time or something like that. But the script is very sharp. It's very funny. And I think this is one that there aren't a ton of jokes that might necessarily go over kids' heads, but that parents can still enjoy because they're not necessarily like, adult themed jokes or dirty jokes like in some of the kids' movies these days. But they're just sort of a little more highbrow, I guess. But I think a 10-year-old would probably still get them. And then there's a lot of jokes that are just, for kids too, like calling your main character garbage. Which I don't know, like to me, and I'm not a dog lover, so like to me, I always think of dogs like just going in people's trash and like eating it up and stuff. So to call your main character garbage, I think is funny. But the premise is fun, I think, for all ages, but especially for kids. The dogs in space, just sort of idea and concept. I mean, the show sort of speaks for itself what it is. Trying to inhabit this new planet. But I got a lot of laughs from this. I think the animation style it's fine. I don't think it's incredibly sophisticated, but again, this is sort of molding itself after some of those late 90s CN shows. And the voice acting is fun. If I didn't know it was Haley Joel Osment, I would not have known, and not that he's in a ton of things these days and whatever, but I've seen him in, plenty of TV shows and movies in the last decade. But I still, I guess, don't know his voice because I had no idea. And even Sarah Chalk, I don't know if she's doing something a little bit different to her voice, but, I've been watching her on television for decades, and I didn't really know it was her either. So, the actors are doing a good enough job sort of hiding their voices for us as well, which is kind of fun. But overall, I liked this show. This is another one in the, the Netflix line of really good, kids and family shows that they have going on there. Arlo, I think, was the last one I gave a pretty high grade to. I Love Arlo or something. So I give Dogs in Space an A-. This is a fun one. All right, so finally we get to Firebite. I told you this one wouldn't be super long this episode. And this is on AMC Plus, which I just recently got, but this is, last week we did Ragdoll, which had been on for a couple of months, and all the episodes are up. No, this is actually a new show. It just premiered a week and a half ago, and it will run through February of next year with one episode a week. There's going to be 8 episodes total, and basically this is a vampire show. It is set in the South Australian desert, in this very remote town, but most of the world has collapsed to vampires. There's 2 indigenous Australian hunters here, Tyson, played by Rob Collins, and Shanika, played by Shantae Barnes Cowan, rather. And they are trying to fight off the last colony of vampires. So a lot of the vampires around, have already been destroyed, and now we have the final vampires. Look, first of all, I'm going to say up front, I'm sick of vampires. I'm sick of vampires, and I'm sick of zombies. I'm done with it. We've had, a good, 15-year run or something with it, but Well, and of course, I go back to the Buffy days. Vampires were all the rage. With that, and I love Buffy. Nothing will ever compare, I think, to Buffy in the terms of vampires. Because we've seen too many of them now. Maybe give it another 40 years, and we'll see something as great as Buffy. But that's sort of the gold standard for me because there was so much character development. It was so interesting. Here, we don't really even get a lot of character development. The character development is we hate vampires. Let's kill them. There's not a lot of really sit down dialogue here between these characters, and I'm just sick of the theme. But aside from that, okay, let's even take that out of the equation. The acting here is pretty rough, and the dialogue is also pretty bad. It surprises me that this show is on AMC Plus because this to me not. I guess it'd be more surprising if it was on proper AMC, but okay, I guess AMC Plus is still finding out what it is and finding its footing and what determines what an AMC Plus original is. But this to me was ripped right from like the 90s and 2000s era of Sci-Fi Channel shows. The acting here is just piss poor, and the dialogue is corny, and the shots. I mean, not that there's a ton of special effects here, but there's vampire makeup and stuff like that. But it looks kind of crummy. It looks very low budget. I did not connect really with anybody in this. And again, just sort of tired of the theme. So I don't think we need to belabor this review anymore. It's clearly, a negative grade for me. Firebite gets a D. Not a lot going on here. So not a huge, great week for new shows. I think last week we did all positives. We only did 4 as well last week. But so there's only going to be one more new episode of TV News and Reviews for 2021, and I will basically wrap up with the final shows and anything that I missed over the year. If I have the chance to see Chapelwaite on Epix, I still want to get to that because I think it's like Adrian Brody. It's somebody like real famous that's in it. But I don't have Epic, so we'll see about that. But definitely, the new Boba Fett show is coming out, so that will sort of lead off the shows next week, and there might be another 2 or 3 coming out. But after that, we will have the 2021 wrap-up, so probably, January 8th or 9th or something. We will do the best and worst of 2021 for all the shows that I've watched and reviewed, and then we will kick right into gear with the 2022 shows, including all of those sitcoms that already premiered on ABC and NBC. Abbott Elementary, Grand Crew, American Auto. All of those shows already had, sort of preview episodes a couple of weeks ago. I purposely have not watched them because I'm going to wait until the premiere is upon us in January for their regular schedule, and then we'll talk about those. So that'll be coming up. So, yes, and news will be back when the studios reopen and give us some news to talk about. So that will do it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.